Hello, I'm Cincinnati Drew, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to do stained glass. This is going to be the basics, what you're going to need to get going, everything from the beginning to end. If you do have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment below, and let's go! Safety first, wear eye protection. Gloves are optional when breaking glass. Whenever I'm doing stained glass, I like to make sure I have a few Sharpies handy. The metallic silver and the black Sharpie. These are great for drawing on your pattern or taking measurement on just any color of glass, whether it's black or white glass, and you can see it better. An X-Acto knife is a nifty little tool to have on your workbench. These are great when doing the Tiffany style of stained glass, also known as the copper foil method. I use mine for trimming off extra foil from the glass to make everything look even and more uniform. You can also use your X-Acto knife to trim foil when doing copper overlay, to cut out designs in the foil such as waves or zigzags. Scissors are going to be a must when it comes to doing stained glass. I use old pairs I get at the thrift store, hair cutting scissors, or whatever's laying around the house. You will need these to trim up your stained glass pattern if you are drawing it up and gluing it onto your glass. You will also want to get a pair set aside just for trimming your copper foil. When trimming your copper foil, you will get the glue residue from the back of the copper foil tape built up onto your scissors. You're going to want to clean them or replace them after a while. These are foiling shears, and these are terrific for Tiffany style projects, also known as the foiling method. They have 3 blades, 2 on the bottom and 1 on the top. These foiling shears will cut out a small sliver of paper to make room for the copper foil and the solder on your project. These are lead shears. These are used the same as the foiling shears, only these will be used when you are doing leaded projects. They also have 3 blades, 2 on the bottom and 1 on the top. These remove a larger sliver of paper than the foiling shears to make room for the lead cane on your project. This is a basic pistol grip glass cutter. These are great for people who are just starting out and for people with arthritis or neuropathy. The butt of the cutter has a little lid that can be removed to add glass cutting oil directly into the cutter, and it will feed through to the surface of the glass when cutting. This is a pencil grip glass cutter. This is held just like a pencil and is my go-to glass cutter. You can remove the back and add glass cutting oil directly into the handle. You can find all kinds of glass cutters on the market. Find what works best for you. You'll be able to find a lot for sale secondhand online that are vintage and antique, just like this one. This is just a basic glass cutter I found at my local hardware store. They are sold all over, and this isn't really one of my favorites, but I know some artists who swear by them. On my workbench, I keep my glass cutter in a jar upright all the time. That way the oil is always being pulled down. I also keep a mix of glass cutting oil and basic WD-40 in the jar to make sure that my glass cutter is always well lubricated. These are running pliers. These are used to break glass along a score line, allowing for a more clean and controlled break. Great for straight lines and slight curves. The opening of the running pliers is curved, and there's also a line marked on the center to help you line up the score line with the running pliers for an easier, cleaner break. Some running pliers have an adjustable screw to help control the amount of pressure applied. You can find them available at many different retailers and in many different brands. Find the size, handle, and color that suits you best. These are just some basic pliers I keep on my workbench. I mostly use these for stretching strips of lead cane. These are needle nose pliers, and I would recommend getting a pair or 2 for your workbench. These come in handy when soldering a jump ring onto a small sun catcher, or if you're soldering wire work onto your project. These are my lead cutters. I've also heard people call these lead nippers. I use these to cut lead cane for projects, or copper wire or tinned copper wire for projects. These are very sharp, so please be careful when using. Breaking pliers are for breaking small or thinner pieces of glass. You can hold the glass with the breaking pliers on one side of the score line, with grazing pliers on the other side to help with the break. This is recommended instead of using 2 pair of grazing pliers because breaking pliers are flat and smooth on both top and bottom. These are grazing pliers, also known as grazer breakers. They're flat on the top and curved on the bottom, and these are used to break and finish glass edges in a controlled manner. Glass and tile nippers. I use these mainly when I'm doing mosaics. They're used for breaking and cracking away at glass or tile to shape it down for your project. They have 2 diamond-coated wheels on the top, and they are squeezed together to do the breaking. This is my grinding station. I have a pitcher of water, splash guard, and a face shield on my grinder. Glass grinder has a grate on top of the tray with a plug underneath. When you grind your glass, the debris falls down into the holes and keeps the area smooth and clean on your work surface. You also add water to the tray to help keep the glass wet while grinding. The water is very important as it helps keep the glass cool from the friction of the diamond grinding bit and helps the glass grind smoother. You can also add a small amount of grinding coolant. I have a foot pedal on my grinders, so I do not have to turn it on and off from the switch manually. I find it much easier to use. The sponge behind your grinding bit is also very important as it helps pull water from the debris tray below and keep the glass and grinder bit wet when in use. This is my grinding cookie. I found this online and it helps out tremendously. When you have a piece of glass that's sharp on both sides, you use this to push the glass and feed it into the grinder to keep your fingers safe from getting cut. This is a grinder mate. This is good for very small pieces of glass. These clamp onto the glass while you grind and you can move it around a lot easier. This is grinding coolant, and you add just a small capful of this to the water reservoir of your glass grinder or your glass saw to help give the bits a longer life. When foiling glass for the Tiffany style method or the copper foil method, I use my glass foiling machine. You can set 2 different sizes of foil on this model. I got mine years ago from Glass Star. I know you can find many types of foilers on the market: hand foilers, table foilers, electric foilers, etc. Find the one that works best for you. Some people don't even use a foiler, they just do it by hand. When it comes to copper foil, it's going to come in different sizes and colors, with 7/32 being the most common size and the back of the foil depending mainly on your project. You can get black backed foil, silver backed foil, and regular copper backed foil. The different colors of foil are for the patina or finish you choose so it matches on the finished project. You are going to need a fid to burnish the foil onto the glass. These 2 are the most popular I've seen and used. I've also seen wood fids. This fid has a little boot on the bottom and it can help you open up your zinc cane. You just run the boot through the channel and it'll open it up enough to fit your piece of glass. The biggest, most important tool in making stained glass is your soldering iron. You will need a 100-watt soldering iron so that it can pull enough power and energy to maintain a high enough temp to give you a nice, clean, smooth solder. If your iron is not hot enough, your solder will not be smooth and flow easy. You can find many different brands, styles, and setups when it comes to soldering irons, but I would recommend getting a 100-watt iron. For your soldering iron, you will want to get a little caddy stand like this to hold it for you while you're doing your work. This will come in handy if you need to set down your soldering iron while you're making a project. When soldering, you will want to keep the tip of your iron clean. As you solder along, you will get residue buildup on the tip of your iron, and you can get a wet sponge or a little can with some steel wool like this, and you just scrape off the tip and wipe it off to get it nice and clean again. This will help ensure a nice, clean, smooth, even solder. The most popular solder for stained glass is going to be 60-40 solder and 50-50 solder. You can also find lead-free solder. Make sure not to use rosin core solder as it can leave a messy, hard to clean residue on your stained glass project. Each have a different melting point. This is stained glass Flux. You need to spread this onto the lead, zinc, copper, or brass that you are going to solder. Flux helps the solder spread and flow smoothly. I use all different types of flux, and each one works great depending on the project. The types of flux you can get are liquid, gel, paste flux, and tallow. When you are done soldering, you are going to need to clean the flux off of your project. You can find a few different products to do this, and depending on the project and the size, you may need one or the other. After you have cleaned the flux off of your stained glass project, you can choose to leave the solder silver, or you can choose a patina you like. I have a black patina and a copper patina that I use. I have also seen a green patina, the same color as the Statue of Liberty. Be careful when using this. This stuff is very toxic. Please use caution. After you have applied your patina to your project, you're going to need to polish up the glass in the patina and put a protective layer of polish on top of the solder to help protect it from oxidizing. You can use turtle wax or stained glass polish. I personally like turtle wax the best.
All right, everybody, that's the end of the video. Please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and I'd greatly appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out today.